hard to imagine a discussion about the role of business in society that doesn't at least consider the work of Milton Friedman. His 1970 essay is pretty directly titled, "The Social Responsibility of Business is to Increase Its Profits." While short and aimed at a general audience, it first appeared in the New York Times Magazine. His essay has shaped the conversation about the role of business ever since. There's several ways to approach and understand his argument, but I think the most rewarding, particularly as we transition toward thinking about our own roles in business rather than just the role of business in broader society, is to see Friedman as critical of people who can't keep straight the various parts of their identity or the various roles in their lives. Maybe you have a leadership role in a fraternity or an arts club. In that role, you keep the checkbook for the group and you have a bunch of supplies for the club purposes that are stored in your apartment. There's never enough storage places for that kind of club, right? One afternoon, I come to you and explain that there's been a terrible fire in my home and my family needs clothing, just like what you have for your theater troupe, or money to buy school supplies that your sorority could easily spare. Do you have an individual obligation to help me? I'm not sure about obligation. Remember our discussion about Smith earlier in the class, and particularly his moral sentiments work. I'd like to think you'd feel some desire to help me, that we've come to know each other and you want me to be comfortable and happy. Does your fraternity or theater group or whatever organization you're representing, does it have the same obligation? Of course not. You know that in your role as the fraternity treasurer, you can't do anything to help me, at least not without the rest of the group voting to do so. As an individual, you can offer some of your own money or clothing, but you can't make that decision with other people's resources. This is what Friedman thinks is happening when businesses use resources for social purposes. Executives are confusing their roles, and society is asking businesses to give back, which implies that they took something or have no proper value-creating purpose to begin with. Businesses are owned by people, and those people, the shareholders, are the proper strategic decision makers, not corporate executives or unrelated members of society. Friedman isn't arguing that we should ignore the needs of our fellow citizens, but rather if we sense an obligation, we should meet that obligation with our own resources. And what if the owners of a business want that business to engage in social welfare? Is it okay then? That's a pretty big question for our society right now, and we'll talk about it some in class. When does Friedman's approach not work? Are there some kinds of businesses that aren't designed to allow for the kind of decision-making he advocates? Is it unrealistic in some cases to think that individuals will actually communicate to the executives running their business what it is that they want? Maybe in some cases executives should go ahead and use their own decision-making authority on behalf of all those owners? Again, these are big live questions in our society, and we'll talk more about them in class.